My name is Hector Sosa. I would like to welcome you back to the State of Cybersecurity. Our guest for today is Dr. Dwayne Hodges. We would like to jump to the first question. Is our problem with a system or with a person, Dr. Hodges?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, Hector. And first, thanks for having me on again. I think too often we look at cybersecurity from a perspective of trying to solve it with a silver bullet. We've been talking about that for quite some time now. There's no panacea to this question. I think there's a number of things that we constantly need to evolve in going into 2020. Things that we do today may not work tomorrow. It's not a good idea, I think, to hold on to books in cybersecurity in this field like you do other professions. If you remember years ago, we had a Britannica book of encyclopedias. You pull it off the shelf, you look up a term, and you say, how do we solve this problem? And so I think we need to constantly evolve in the way we think, today, and how do we solve a problem for tomorrow. I think that, we're putting too much burden on the user in the environment, specifically as we look at, the IoT. Not just the IoT, but the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything, and the Internet of Anything. And these three terms are not interchangeable. They mean something different. The Internet of Things can be the Internet of Everything, and it can be the Internet of anything and everywhere. We're in a world where borders they're imaginary. They're as large as the globe. And I think that we've reached that high watermark on human cybersecurity and on basic hygiene. I think just a couple of years ago, it was probably okay to give a basic human awareness class for both a user, maybe for an admin or a daily user, maybe put up a poster and say, don't click, use antivirus. Basic human security practices, I think, are probably a thing of the past as we move into 2021. And so we've kind of reached that high watermark just on basic awareness, and there's probably has to be more advanced education at the user level. And that's just talking about users. So I think just as we reach that high watermark, we probably learned that, we're bunkering down firewalls and intrusion detection systems, and just as we taught ourselves that we had to do more than just watching traffic leave our organizations. It was not good enough. We have to do a lot more with security going into 2021, much more than just these basic security practices. I think systems need to be built with high levels of security during the development process. This includes post-deployment security processes. It just doesn't stop after we deploy a system. And this includes both the user, the developers, the manufacturers, and the engineers that are actually managing the systems. So security is an evolving process. Systems that are too advanced, I think, they create more opportunities for a plethora of opportunities for adversaries that are persistent with their skills. So in 2021, you're not going to need a nation state to cripple another nation. It's only going to take maybe a script kit with just a few set of skills and probably a free tool that he can download. It's going to be very cheap, very quick, and very easy to commit these attacks. And so I think it's going to put users at a very low level and small businesses at a very disadvantage in 2021.
Yeah, I think the key of what you're saying, sorry to interrupt, the key of what you're saying, it was based on what you said, that the Internet of Things, this is where the line gets blurred between the two, between the user and actual technology. And I think that this is why it's so important for us to have put emphasis on the security both from the client side and the application side. And unfortunately, for us, training and awareness are the only things that are going to help the user side of things. You are a man that sees a lot of different networks, and you're involved in a lot of different things. Do you see many organizations out there that's still with a lot of unresolved vulnerabilities and things of the sort?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I think that you still see a lot of organizations out there. Um, uh, I think that uh, any good cybersecurity report is going to show you that organizations are getting hacked at many levels, and it resulted in a patch. There was a system out there that got exploited, but there was a patch out that could have resolved it. And so it came down to that this system, if it was patched, it the system wouldn't have been attacked. The application wouldn't have been exploited because there was a patch out there already. In many cases, this wasn't the system actually where the data was stolen from. It wasn't the system that the attacker was after. It was just kind of the front door in. It wasn't the system in interest. It was, let me get in there and pivot to another system, move laterally in, and then, get the data that I'm interested in. And this has been going on for a long time, since APT1. But in 2021, I think we're going to see the problem is going to be not so much unresolved technical vulnerabilities, because really it's about Microsoft releasing updates. How fast can we scan our systems to find those updates and remediate those vulnerabilities? But we still have to determine, when we remediate, what else do we break? Do we break other systems? Do we stop a business process? Do we cripple business function? So is it a good idea, right? How do we bake this into our secure DevOps process without breaking something? But going down, we got to look closely at, will there be more bad people out there that want to pursue these opportunities and these technologies? What will this bring? So with the Internet of Things, as you spoke to a few seconds ago, we have refrigerators, we have coffee makers, we have any kind of app or piece of smart technology now that can connect to the internet, or any kind of way to make our life easier, now offers another ramp onto the internet, has another IP address. And so how now do we use this technology? Okay, how do we now update this? I mean, how many times are we actually updating our thermostat and our refrigerators, the sprinkler systems? People are now using their sprinkler systems to turn on their water at 5 o'clock in the morning, have their coffee pot turned on as soon as they wake up. These systems are touching their networks, and so because they touch their networks, there's a way into their network. And so this is now another opportunity for bad people to commit nefarious actions into the network. And so I think the question is, in 2021 is, there's more bad people out there, there's more opportunities out there. That's the question that we're living in right now.
So this is why you would say that smart devices are so vulnerable at this time.
Yeah, right? Yeah, they're more vulnerable more than ever. And so, we have to think about creatively. I don't think people are going to stop using smart devices. I think it's, it's the way of the world. Yeah, if we can find a way, what we gain in convenience, we lose in security. So if I can have my coffee pot be ready at 5 o'clock without me getting out of bed and walking to my kitchen in the freezing cold, if it could be ready for me, I'm going to do it. The question is, can I put that on another network? Can I separate that process, segment that network? And so can I use cryptography? With cryptography is complexity. With complexity is hard. So there's a lot of things, and it costs money too. I mean, functionality is easy. To plug it in and turn it on is plug and play. And these protocols are very easy to use. They don't require any thinking. And if a coffee pot made today if it doesn't use this functionality, if it doesn't connect to the network, there's a competitive edge that the manufacturer loses. And so these things are going to happen. But if they require security, if they require you to configure AES 256-bit and require you to put a password in and update it, then this does cost money and time from the DevOps process all the way to the configuration through the user. And then again, how often are you going to update this? Probably never. When are you ever going to take a laptop and connect it to a thermostat or a coffee maker and update this? And how often are you going to scan that for a vulnerability? Probably never.
And also from the business perspective, a customer is going to want something that's plug and play. That's just the way things are. If you as a manufacturer add the complexity of security, is going to lower the appeal of that product.
Yeah,
so the reason.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Hector. And I think, one of the things with security too is I think that return on investment is hard to sell to a user. It's hard to sell to a chief technology officer if you're a chief security officer and you're trying to speak to a CTO or a CIO or even a board for that matter. That hey, I need to invest in security on the landscape of technology. And in our landscape of technology, we do, in fact, have IoT devices that we need to protect. So how do you actually sell that, right? How do you sell that we need to secure our IoT landscape? Well, you're not actually selling securing the IoT devices. You're actually selling the fact that these IoT devices have created a way for adversaries to now get into our network and possibly create confidentiality, integrity, or availability breaches within our network, number one. Or number two, if in fact you are part of any of the critical infrastructure industries, okay, can they now use our network against other people? And what I mean by that is there may be probably just a due care responsibility that you have that your network is not turned into part of a distributed denial of service. And so just by having these IoT devices, your thermostat can do two things. Your thermostat, one, can be used into a botnet, so now be used as a cyberspace weapon on the battlefield to maybe take down a public website. It's now out there, right, against somebody else. And so should you not be required to protect that to be used as a botnet? Or number two, because it's an open IP address, if I come by and use a tool and scan to see, what IP address is open, I see that, Nmap shows me these devices are open. Oh, I see that that's a port that I can get into. That's an IP address I can get into. I use that and I hop onto that, and now I make my way and I laterally move in, okay, and I go in and I get the information I want. And maybe 3 or 4 years ago, protecting from confidentiality was the motive of security officer for most traditional network security, especially in the government side. They care a lot about confidentiality, but with the IoT devices, it's something different. They're going to be looking to protect against availability and integrity. And so these IoT devices, what they do is they really start to place an emphasis on wanting to care about the integrity and the availability of your network. Because if one of these IoT devices, let's just say it's the coffee pot, or let's just say it's the thermostat, if I can get into your network and I can compromise your thermostat, in essence, I'm gonna mess with the integrity of your heating and air conditioning unit. If I can raise your temperature up to 95 degrees, I mean, that's a pretty bad day in your house if I bring it up to 95 degrees. If I can bring the temperature down to 50 degrees, that's a pretty bad day. And so that's an integrity issue. Or if I could just cripple it in the middle of the summertime and your HVAC doesn't work at all, that's a pretty bad day.
It is a good point that you just brought up, because that also brings to mind the question of how that can be used in a cyber in a cyber race or an arms race. In fact, we have seen examples of that. But do you think that we are currently living in a time when that is a real threat, a race for arms?
Yeah. So another good question, and let me just finish off on my last point by saying that years ago we said, well, if I wanted to bring down the data center, denial of service, what is the biggest way? Well, we would laugh and joke and say that the network administrator would accidentally unplug the data center. Well, or in 2018, send a LOIC bomb or something, maybe send a bunch of packet requests to the server, bring it down. But now I'm telling you, maybe I could just bring down the thermostat and overheat the data center, and that
Yes.
itself is a denial of service. But yeah, are we living in an arms race? I think that we have always been in an arms race, and I think that the best way to look at this is the revolution of cyberspace. The IT landscape changes as we add in more stuff into the IT landscape, as we add in more VMs, as we go to a cloud computing environment, as we go to microservices, as we start to move between the Amazon of the world to the IBM to the Azure, and we start to put our security services as well in these cloud compute environments. The threat space changes as well significantly. It's a cascading effect. You can't have one without the other. And the military traditionally, we've been training military warriors to fight and protect enemies across all the domains. Land, sea, air, space, and then we moved into the cyber domain to protect systems, IT systems from cyber attacks. They stood up a cyber command. They created a cyber strategy on how to fight. So I think that when we talk about a revolution of within cyberspace, I think it's foreseeable now that in 2021 we're going to have new domains such as the artificial intelligence domain. We're seeing artificial intelligence being used much more in a sophisticated capacity. A few years ago, it was the online database for medical doctors. If I have a rash, what do I do? Well, put cream. If I have this ache and pain, what is it? It's kind of if then what. It's just a database of a lot of intelligence where somebody can go and ask a question, and that's what artificial intelligence is. But it's getting better where now cybersecurity is using that to defend its IT systems. And there are lots of tools that we could talk in another episode about what AI actually is. But I think it's important to know that it's not something that the good guys can use and the bad guys can't use for nefarious purposes as well. And so it's going to be a new domain that we have to protect. And I think that this revolution is going to continue. We saw it. We went from the horse and buggy to the car. And now cars are starting to be, driverless cars. We've gone to airplanes. I mean, we went from bow and arrows to cannons and to rifles. And so the same thing is going to happen in cyberspace. We're going to see the tools get, better and better. And we can go from artificial intelligence to something more sophisticated, deeper within the data science field. So that's a real good question.
Dr. Hodges, unfortunately, this is all the time we have for this week for our state of cybersecurity. I want to thank you for your time, and we will see you next week.
Great. Thanks for having me. Thank you.